practical answers to your questions. I'm Erin Wolfram. I own and operate Career Advantage and Career Advantage Golf, where I help professionals feel more confident and prepared throughout their job search by assisting with resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, mock interviews, really anything job search related. But each week in this podcast, I answer one question from the public. And this week's question is, how do I find a remote job that will stay remote? So I think now that question may be a little bit easier than it was when this question was initially submitted because, with everything that's going on in the world and that has been going on for the past year and a half with COVID and a lot of people moving to remote work either permanently or temporarily because of the pandemic, I think that the answer to that question, it might be a little bit easier to find remote work that stays remote than maybe it would have been, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So first, there is a website that I am not associated with at all. I'm not a sponsor or anything like that, or they're not a sponsored me. No direct association, but it is called flexjobs.com. Flex, F-L-E-X, jobs.com. It is a job board that specifically lists remote jobs or jobs that have, more flexibility in nature as far as, work environment. So that is one job board that might be a good one to consider if you are specifically looking for a remote position. But what I have found is that there are a lot of opportunities out there that are remote now that maybe wouldn't have been remote, like I said, 2 or 3 years ago, because organizations have found that their employees can work from anywhere. And so really just about any job board that I've looked at lately, such as LinkedIn or Indeed, they typically will have the name of the position and the organization, and then with location, a lot of times you will now see several remote opportunities. And if they say just remote, it is highly likely that that position is remote permanently. If it is temporarily remote due to the pandemic, then you'll likely see it say remote temporarily. So, or temporary. So keep that in mind. If a position says remote without temporary next to it, it likely will be a permanent remote position. And you can usually find more information to verify that within the job description, or if you go on the company website, you'll find potentially more information regarding their permanent work environment. So that's what I would recommend that you do is as you are searching for opportunities, if you are looking online, is to look at the location and see what it says as far as, remote or a specific city. Now, something to keep in mind is I have seen some positions that say remote, but you still have to be in a certain city, or maybe one of many cities that are listed, and that might be because you may need to attend an occasional meeting, or you may need to network with people in the local community, or possibly work or collaborate with some other folks in the area. So do look at that as well. So I've seen positions that say remote as far as the location goes, but then it also says but you must be located in this city or one of these cities that's listed. So do keep that in mind and don't just automatically assume if it says remote that can actually be anywhere in the world. Now, if you decide to apply for a position that says remote temporary, again, that could mean that at some point that position will, go back to an in-person environment. So if you apply for one of those positions and you get an interview, what I recommend is, at the end of the interview, when they ask you what questions do you have for us, ask them about that. You could say, on the job description, I noticed that this position says that it's remote, but it's temporarily remote. Could you explain that? And then hopefully they'll be able to provide you with some information regarding their timeline, or if it actually is permanently remote or not. So I would certainly ask that as a question, since it's listed on the job description. That's certainly fair game to ask at the end of an interview. So those are kind of my main tips for finding remote opportunities. Like I said, I feel like now it's easier than it was in the past. I think people are being pretty transparent as far as whether or not they have remote opportunities. If you apply for a position and it doesn't seem like it's remote, or there's not the opportunity to work from home at least part of the time, one thing that you could consider is, if you do get a job offer and maybe you don't have any room to negotiate salary, but maybe there's the opportunity to negotiate other things, that's certainly something that you could potentially negotiate, is to see if you could work from home, 1 to 2 days a week. So again, I think that that's something that is happening more often now than it would have, a few years ago. And I think that employers are being more receptive to that, but I probably wouldn't bring that up until you're actually offered a position, and just inquire about it as far as, a potential opportunity to negotiate. So if you have any other questions related to remote work, or anything, career development related or job search related, you can always reach out to me. My websites are careeradvantageresumes.com or careeradvantagegolf.com. You can also find me on social media at Career Advantage Resumes on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and on Twitter it's at Advantage Career. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.